Okay, we have all been there. You know that super awkward moment when you forget someone's name, like seconds after they said it? Well, today we're going to break down exactly why that happens. And I promise, by the end of this, you are going to realize it is absolutely not your fault.
Just picture it. You're at a party, maybe a work thing, and you see a familiar face. You're standing right there, face to face, and you know them.
You can practically feel the gears in your head just grinding to a halt. The pressure is on, right? You're smiling, you're nodding, but inside, your mind is just a blank slate.
Yeah, it's like the name was never even there to begin with. Just gone. Not even on the tip of your tongue, just a big empty space where a name is supposed to be.
So let's start by digging into that feeling, that moment. Because, understanding the feeling is actually the first step to understanding the science behind it.
Let's just get this out of the way right now. Forgetting a name is not a character flaw. It doesn't mean you're rude or that you don't care. What's really happening is, well, it's kind of like a traffic jam in your brain.
And that traffic jam brings us to the real reason this all happens. See, when you meet someone new, your brain is doing so much more than just listening for a name.
Think of your working memory as your brain's temporary RAM, or like a little sticky note. And in that moment, it is totally maxed out. It's trying to read their facial expressions, analyze their tone of voice, figure out the social vibe, plan what you're going to say next. It's a really intense mental performance.
And then boom, right in the middle of all that mental chaos, this little piece of data just gets dropped in. A name, a totally random sound with no context. Your brain barely has any space left for it.
And what's really fascinating is that while they are saying their name, you're probably running a totally separate script in your own head. You're so busy worrying about your own performance that their name just flies right past you.
This actually has a name. It's a real psychological thing. When you're busy rehearsing what you're about to say, your brain literally stops recording what the other person is saying. So you're not a bad listener. You're just stuck in prep mode.
Okay, so let's get into another really cool idea that explains why names, specifically, are just so tricky for our brains. It's called the Baker-Baker paradox.
Seems a little weird, right? I mean, it is the exact same word, but your brain treats these two pieces of info in completely different ways.
And this comparison just shows it perfectly. The job baker connects to this whole web of ideas already in your brain. You think of bread, heat, flour, maybe a big white hat. It has meaning. But the name baker, it's just a random label. It's an abstract sound with nothing to hook onto.
And that right there is the key. Our brains aren't like hard drives, just storing random files. They're more like spider webs, built to connect meaningful information. And a name, all by itself, is one of the least meaningful bits of data you can get. So if your brain is just tossing the name aside, what is it choosing to remember instead? Well, this is where we get to reframe this whole thing, not as a flaw, but as a feature of a differently designed brain.
So the person who forgot your name, yeah, they probably remember everything else about you. They remember the feeling of the conversation, the vibe you gave off, that funny story you told, the way you laughed. Their brain was totally present for the experience, just not for the label. In fact, you could argue that people who struggle with names are often incredibly strong in other ways. They tend to be really good at reading people, at deep listening. They're tracking the things that actually build a real human connection. They get people, even if they can't recall what they're called. So, with all that in mind, what if you actually do want to get better at this? How can you work with your brain's design instead of fighting against it? Let's check out a few tips. So can you get better? For sure.
You just have to consciously do the thing your brain doesn't do automatically. You have to force a connection. Say the name right back to them. Connect it to someone else you know. Create a really silly mental image. You're basically giving that random sound some meaning for your brain to grab onto.
But that guilt, that little nagging feeling that you're a bad person for forgetting, you can just let that go. A name is just a sound. What you remember is the real stuff, the person behind the label, and that's what truly matters.
So let's just end with this thought. Maybe you don't have a bad memory. Maybe what you have is a really good priority system. And maybe, just maybe, your brain is just being super efficient, automatically clearing out the clutter to make more room for what actually defines a person.